a character by the name of Burt Gummer in the Tremors movie series. Now, if you're familiar with that series, it got sillier and sillier as it went. But Burt was a diehard, dedicated prepper, not real fond of government, but one of the greatest lines that he ever uttered was in response to an EPA official coming and declaring whatever those underground worms were that were killing everybody an endangered species and all the attendant regulations that go along with endangered species. And Bert says, "Isn't that just like government? You take something simple and complicate it." Well, I've got a story for you about an issue that should be very simple. And yeah, even though Idaho legislators said they were trying to fix the problem, they only really ended up trying to complicate it. We'll talk about that in just a moment.
Reporters are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Well, once again, welcome to Nowhere to Hide. Twice a week, I like to sit down and just go over some of the legislative issues as well as some of the legacy media coverage of legislature as well as other issues to show you how easy it is to manipulate people in a way that keeps them from seeing the truth. It's not so much as standing there telling us outright lies as just shading things in a way that favors a particular outcome. Well, when it comes to nasty material in libraries, and I'm using the term nasty material. So I know that some people want to quibble on definition. Well, there's not pornography in libraries, but look, if you're showing kids how to engage in various sexual acts, whether it be with themselves, whether it be with others, if you're introducing them to sex, again, we're talking kids. There's a line that's being crossed here. And there's a lot of sophistry out there to try to excuse it as, oh, this is a made up problem. And yet legislators attacked this, the problem of smut in the libraries, or at least inappropriate material being made available to kids in the libraries, not so much by trying to protect the children, but by trying to protect the libraries, the librarians, the system. Where have we seen that before? Oh, yeah, that would describe a lot of how public education issues are ironed out. Well, what can we do to protect the system? Well, what about the kids? Well, never mind the kids, the system. That's what's important. So let's look at a couple of headlines here. This is from Idaho Capital Sun. Idaho Senate rejects library bill by 1 vote. Now, there was some interesting fallout here. Chuck Winder actually takes a little bit of heat for this, but failed vote follows years of attempts at library harmful materials legislation in Idaho. Republican leader, that's Chuck Winder they're talking about, tells critics to think hard about what could come next. Wait, are you saying that Chuck is on the right side? Maybe, maybe not. Take a look here. This is from the article from the Idaho Capital Sun. Senate President pro tempore Chuck Winder of Boise said he doesn't want to go home without a library bill, and the bill was the best we're going to get this year. For those of you who say you're not ever going to vote for a library bill, your opposition to a bill may not kill that bill, and you may end up with something a lot worse than what's before you today, Winder said. I really ask you to think hard about what you might get if you don't get this one. Now, I just got to pause for a second. Does that sound like a threat? Because some people took it as a threat, and actually Chuck Winder had to kind of step up and walk it back. Now, look, I wasn't threatening anybody. I just said that if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, well, your life is going to suck in some way. Well, I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what he communicated. So what, pray tell, were they going to fix about not appropriate material being distributed to kids in either public school libraries or in public libraries? Well, this is just a quick snapshot. In fact, I'm not even going to read the whole thing here. I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights, but I'll show you a flow chart that illustrates it way quicker and way better than this explanation from the Idaho Capital Sun. So if this bill had passed, under the legislation, if a patron found a child had access to an item previously deemed harmful to minors, in other words, it has to have previously been deemed that, under a decision from the committee or board, they could sue the library. It would create a whole system that parents then can appeal to, and they could sue the library for $250 in statutory damages as well as other damages and relief. And it would require Idaho libraries to establish what they call a materials review committee. Wait a minute, that sounds like more government. Yes, it does, doesn't it? With at least 3 people who live in the school or library district and contain at least one parent of a minor. Libraries also had to provide a relocation form for patrons who believe materials are harmful to minors. And people who filed that form would be entitled to a public hearing by the committee. And then libraries would have to provide at least a week of public notice for the hearing in the newspaper. And the review committee would have had to provide an explanation in writing about their decision on the material. And wow, they solved the problem. Or did they just complicate it? Because that really sounds complicated. Well, let's bring in some clarification here. And this is courtesy of Senator Brian Lenny. He says, to safeguard minors from harmful or obscene content without burdening the parents with excessive hurdles is straightforward. You eliminate the legal loophole that currently allows schools, libraries, and museums to distribute pornographic material to children. Because as it stands, they have a legal right to do so. In other words, there's an exception in the law about harmful materials to children. In introducing a bill to remove this provision, similar to what H666 achieved in 2022, presents a clear and effective solution. And he says it's really that simple. Now, this is the actual text of the bill and how it would change the law. So you'll see that, it talks about disseminating harmful material to minors in any prosecution for disseminating material harmful to minors. It is an affirmative defense that, look at that D that's struck through there. The defendant was a bona fide school, college, university, museum, or public library, and was acting in his capacity as an employee of such an organization or a retail outlet affiliated with and serving the educational purpose of such an organization. In other words, there's a loophole here that you could apparently drive a truck full of, salacious material through. So if you really want to protect kids, the simple thing is you just simply take out that exception. And all that means, it doesn't mean we ban books. It doesn't mean, that we, go out and put the librarian in the pillory and throw rotten tomatoes at him. It just means that they don't have that affirmative defense to hide behind. But I want you to see, and this is actually an article from the Idaho Freedom Caucus. This is from their Substack. Why we killed the library bill. Now, this was written by Senator Brian Lenny, but he goes through this so quickly and so easily. He says, we killed a library bill dead on the Senate floor yesterday. 18-17 was the vote count. But why? Well, he says, in an odd turn of events, all but one Democrat joined with conservatives to kill it for two different reasons. The Dems didn't like it because, well, they don't think there's a problem with libraries or porn on the shelves. Okay, fair enough. But he says, we killed it because the bill we got, which was preceded by a lot of pressure, shenanigans, and arm twisting, didn't protect kids or families. It protected libraries because it created a 14-step process that could cost tens of thousands of dollars and take years just to remove a single book. There you go. Government takes something that could be simple and complicates it. But you need to see what this looks like because the picture's worth 1,000 words. It's hard to read, but there's your 14-step easy plan with the library and school board creating a policy, appointing a review committee, creating a form, and then parents can file a form. The red print there talks about no time limit on government in several different places, but there are time limits on the parents. If you can look at that flow chart and say, oh yeah, this is the model of efficiency, and it just makes it so easy for parents. If there's something they find objectionable, they can register their complaint and have it taken care of right away. No, not even close. So let's get back to Senator Lenny's explanation. He says, look, that's crazy, talking about the chart, right? The red tape would be enough to dissuade almost any parent from even trying, let alone retaining a lawyer to help them do it. Now he says we wanted to fix or amend it, but the bottom line is those bill sponsors wouldn't budge an inch. And this is why Chuck Winder was going on about, well, if you don't accept this, you're going to get something way worse. All right, that's the pressure. So Senator Lenny says we killed it. It deserved to die, and I'm glad it did, because the library bills that came before it went straight to the issue, held the libraries accountable, and didn't require parents to be the new library police. For example, House Bill 666, I know, it's scary, from 2022. It solved the problem, right, removed that exception, and passed the House. But the Senate wouldn't even hear it afterwards, so why not bring that one back? Well, he says it eliminated the provision in Idaho law that exists as you're reading it to let libraries, schools, and museums give porn, and by that he means those salacious materials to kids legally. That's Idaho law, so why not just get rid of that section of code? Easy, right? But he says there are other ideas too. Ones that don't make parents hire lawyers and spend tens of thousands of dollars just to remove a single book. But the bill yesterday was a compromised bill pushed onto the sponsors by leadership and run by a guy in the Senate who openly admitted he didn't even think libraries had an issue with obscene materials in the first place. So Senator Lenny says, let's do better. Our kids deserve it. Can't disagree with him on this. And look, I love that the debate is being framed from the standpoint of, look, is this protecting kids or is this just protecting the system? It's very clear from what has been put forth that the system is what's really being looked after. All right, couple quick news headlines here. I don't want to make it sound like there's any gloating going on here. These are real people with real lives who are facing the unemployment line. But look at this list of legacy media companies, or at least big mass media companies, that have either cut jobs or completely closed their doors. This is just the ones just this year. You have Washington Post, Vox Media, LA Times. Remember, they laid off hundreds of journalists, or over 100 journalists just a couple weeks back. Pitchfork, Sports Illustrated, it's gone. Time, Business Insider, TechCrunch, the Wall Street Journal. That one kind of surprised me. The Messenger, Vice Media, it's gone. Bottom line is fake news is on the ropes. Now, that doesn't mean, therefore, you can go back to relaxing and not to, questioning anything that you're being told by mass media. But isn't that interesting that the narrative managers and protectors, there's nobody standing up for them. And in fact, there are a lot of people that actually are kind of happy to see them go. That's sad. There was a time when, truth tellers and journalists were somewhat respected, but that's not what we have today, at least not within the legitimate ranks of those recognized ones. Here's another one that I want to just put across your radar screen. There was a targeting earlier this year of 5 conservative senators, Brian Lenny being one of them, where Governor Brad Little had meetings. There were mailers sent out about them. People were removed by Senate President pro tempore Chuck Winder from various committee assignments. And this is from Stop Idaho Rhinos, who tell us that Brad Little had meetings where he made it clear he wanted to target 5 conservative senators and get them out. And shortly after that, it was Chuck Winder who sent letters to several of them, removing them from committee positions. Now, about that same time, targeted mailers came out against several, was it 5, conservative senators. And then the governor worked behind the scenes against a conservative, Christy Zito, running against an atheist, Jeff Schroeder, to give Jeff a win for the campaign season on a worthless library bill. Don't forget that Jeff Schroeder's on record saying that people should get involved and run within the party that's in power in the location that person is running in. Whether you agree with them or not, right? This is just, we need numbers, not principles. If you ever thought that Brad Little was a conservative Republican, Stop Idaho Rhino says, think again. Why are any legislators even trying to compromise with the strong arm of the executive branch? Why? Okay, good question. 2 more quick headlines and we'll wrap it up here. Look, just when you think that, okay, this transgender issue just can't get any more combative, actually it can, because a bill had to be proposed that would prohibit the use of public funds for gender-affirming care, which is another way of saying surgical and hormonal intervention for people who are struggling with gender dysphoria. Idaho Capital Sun is bemoaning it. Well, under this bill, state employees wouldn't be able to use their insurance plan to acquire gender-affirming medication, and transgender Idahoans wouldn't be able to use Medicaid to obtain gender-affirming care. What if they used their own money instead of the taxpayers' money? I mean, it started out as we just want to be left alone, or we just want to be able to be accepted for who we are. Now it's pay for my decisions, pay for my surgery, pay for this, pay for that. That's not fair to ask of the taxpayers. And yet look at the legacy media. Oh, what a shame. It's going to make it hard for them to get the care that they need. They can get the care that they need, but they should be responsible for paying for it. I don't know. This is the danger of, again, take something simple and complicate it. You want something? Good. Pay for it. No. I want you to pay for it. Oh, good. Well, let's get government involved. One last headline. This is a commentary in the Idaho Capital Sun, about DEI. We shouldn't be taking, DEI out of higher education. Rebecca Talent says, if Idaho wants to attract major employers, the state must recognize these businesses have a commitment to DEI as part of their corporate structure. Okay. And we're supposed to grovel at their feet, apparently, right? I don't know. That's why are these companies, why have they incorporated DEI into their structure, for that matter? And why should the people of Idaho, whether it be customers or employees or anybody else, investors for that matter, why should they sell their souls in a buyer's market? This doesn't make sense. DEI is nothing more than repackaged, institutionalized racism with the shoe on the other foot. Racism is unacceptable unless it's against them. You know who I'm talking about. you're looking at who they're talking about. Oh boy, scary stuff. Well, this is why we pay attention. This is why we question what the media tells us. And it's why we also question what politicians tell us. They're good at telling us what we want to hear. But if you really want to know where you stand, take a look at their actions and you will learn everything you need to know about what they really believe in. Are they really solving a problem, or are they just creating complications? I think I know how I would answer this regarding that last library bill. Now let's see if they follow Senator Lenny's advice and just do a simple solution that solves the problem and keeps material out of reach of young eyes and minds and hands. And people want to get that kind of material, they can still get it. It's not banning the sale of any book. It's not punishing anybody for buying it. It's just making sure that in those public spaces, be they public school libraries rather, or public libraries, that it's not being made readily available to kids. That sounds very reasonable to me. Am I really that out of touch with everybody? I guess so. But to normal people, that would have been a no-brainer. You ask somebody today, what's appropriate for kids? And you get this great impression of a brook trout. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
Reporters are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy in our